Barbieri, and this is my Tremorz interview. Billy Davis, who I work with, have been working with for years, he's signed to Sony, and he also does some work with Sony for other bands. So when Brockhampton came to Australia and when Goldlink came to Australia, they're all Sony artists, and Sony got him to MD, to be the musical director for a couple of their things. And so as a musical director, he would put together a band that he wanted for that project. And so both of those, he was MDing, and he gave me the call to be, as the guitarist. And she just got in touch with me and said, would you want to MD this show for Master Ace and Lekali 47? We only did 2 shows, I think. But yeah, put together a band and learnt all the material, and then he kind of flew in, and we had one rehearsal with him the day of the gig, I think, and then did a couple of shows. There's an element of doubt, I guess, which is, man, we've rehearsed these songs up. Is he going to like them? Is he going to get there on the day and want all these changes made? He rocked up, like I said, I think the day of the gig for a rehearsal, and we're like, what's the energy going to be like? How is he going to be? Is he going to be a nice guy to work with? And he was all cool. He was really enjoying it, and he was also completely rat shit because he'd landed at 5 a.m. or something, got to rehearsal at 10 till 2 or 10 till, I don't know. It was a couple of hours rehearsal, and then did the gig that night. As an MD, trying to be aware of all these things and try keep sane, I guess. I was hoping to have had something out in March. That hasn't happened. So it's looking like maybe April or early May. That'll just be a single called Out There. And then I'll have a couple of other singles off an EP that's called Bunny Hop.
How do you go about promoting yourself?
It's all online these days, right? So I'm fortunate to have one of the guys in the band who's a bit of a marketing guru. So I'll be enlisting his skills to market online via the usual avenues, Facebook and Instagram and stuff. Spotify will be one of them. I think it's an unavoidable platform at the moment. But Bandcamp and Spotify are the main two. The aim would be, that more traffic comes through Bandcamp, because obviously Bandcamp, you have to pay for it, and a considerable amount of that money comes direct to the artist. Whereas Spotify, it's everyone knows about how much each rotation gets. It's next to nothing. Not everyone is enough of a music lover to jump onto Bandcamp, so they'll just use their Spotify account. And if you want people to listen to your tunes, I think, it's got to be there.
Yeah, so like you use Spotify to be like discovered, and then you try to redirect them to Bandcamp. Is that like is that your strategy?
Look, it's a grey area, isn't it? I mean, how are you going to get someone who's on Spotify to go and pay for your stuff on Bandcamp when they can listen to it on Spotify? It's the people that that might work for a future release. So like if people get into your music and they become real fans, they really enjoy it, next release, then they might go onto Bandcamp and buy it as a supporter. Traditionally, recorded music was where bands were making their money years ago. Labels started taking bigger and bigger cuts because they were, funding the record, so it would just be a loan essentially. And then touring became where the bands would make their money by selling out shows. Now that's not happening. So it's kind of all about merch. Worst piece of advice. I've probably blocked out all the bad advice that's been given to me.
If you
It'll be 3 a.m. in the morning. I'll wake up and I'll be like, yep.
What would you have a special request every time you go on stage?
I would want a stage full of free guitars everywhere I go. Just a whole bunch of them that I can just take home.
Ah, you can take her. I thought you were going to give them
Yeah,
away.
yeah, yeah.
Take them home.
Nah, no, no, no. Nah, man.
I know it's a bit rude of me, but sorry to interrupt. We might actually just start with how he got to where he is.
Well, my dad was a muso, gigging like 3, 4 nights a week through most of the 70s.
Hmm.
Um, and he always had a piano and a keyboard. He always used to play when I was little. Growing up, um, I grew up in the 90s, so it was the grunge scene was huge. Um, so all those kind of Seattle bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and all those type acts. Um, and local like Australian bands like Silverchair were pretty big at the time, and um, I heard Hendrix, and that was a big thing for me as a young guitar player to hear someone like that, and that led into a whole bunch of other blues players. When I got a bit more serious about music, my guitar teacher at the time introduced me to some kind of uh, 70s fusion music, lots of instrumental stuff, so Mahavishnu Orchestra and Weather Report, some stuff that isn't so mainstream. And I didn't realize it at the time, but looking at what I do now, all of that stuff it's still comes out in my music, and it still kind of has an influence. I guess compositionally, my ideas can come from a whole bunch of different places. Look, sometimes when I'm composing, I think sometimes it'll be born out of me sitting on the guitar for 3 hours, or just spending a day on the guitar and just getting to the point where I'm not practicing anymore. I'm just kind of exploring and mucking around and coming up with bits. And sometimes it might get born out of a particular sound that I'm using on the guitar that will inspire or lead me to develop something. Sometimes I'll be learning another song and find little bits on the guitar that via learning another song that inspire me, and I'll kind of run with that in a different direction.
Do you feel like you have a genre, or do you like a bit of everything? Like there's things that you always go.
Uh, I think over the past maybe 10 years, it's been really groove focused. So anything with a kind of funk or R&B groove, which, hip hop and rap was born out of those genres. The DJs were sampling drum breaks from funk, from like James Brown, or from, some R&B stuff. So most of the things that I do now, I see them as all coming from the same spot, whether it's hip hop, rap, funk, R&B, soul. I kind of see them all as pretty much coming from the same home.
Do you remember like your first gig?
Yeah, it was what it was. I was maybe I must have been 16 or 17, and me and a friend who I was at high school with, he was a guitarist as well. He's still out there playing, like we're still good mates. Um, I don't even remember how we got this gig, but it was like a bakery or something, some wine night where they'd have, they'd put on some alcohol and have some treats and try and get people in through the door. And we would do 2 sets of mainly kind of jazz standards.
Would you have any advice for someone who's starting out?
Practice better. Practice more disciplined. Always use a metronome. Just practice with a bit of focus. Like I used to spend most of my time practicing was putting on a Rage Against the Machine record and just teaching myself the whole record, and then just playing the record, a lot, which there's value in that. But I kind of wish I had done a bit more of the hard, boring, tedious stuff earlier on. So just focusing a bit more on maybe some technique things, and always having a metronome on so that my timing's really good. That would be my advice is to young players, is if if you're kind of getting into it semi-seriously, put in some time doing the boring stuff. I've had to spend a lot of time over the past number of years fixing that and undoing maybe some of the bad habits that I didn't realize I was getting myself into. I've always played in original bands. So when I was in high school, I had an original band, and we went and we did a 4-track EP, and then the next year we did a 7 or an 8-track album. I've been in many bands, and we've always gone in to do a record and, you know, record your songs and stuff. It wasn't till I started playing for lots of other people that, you know, people would contact me about, hey, can you just record some guitars on this or record some guitars on this? And I guess that's a slightly different thing again when you're getting hired as a session player to play stuff on people's records rather than being involved in a band and wanting to record your own songs to get them out there as an original artist. The way I have gotten that work over the years is the same way I've gotten the live work of working with so many people. It's just by being around, by people seeing you, being, you know, networking, making friends with all the people in the industry.
If someone really wanted to focus on like the original side of music, do you have any recommendations?
These days, you kind of got to be across lots of things. So, you know, obviously you've got to have some songs. That goes without saying. You've got to have content. So recordings and videos, you know, that you can't get away with not having content these days. Find a crew. Find a network of people, bands, artists who are doing similar things to you. Go out and check their gigs. Make friends with them. Book them for your gigs, and then they'll probably book you for their gigs. And then, you know, you start a little scene and a little crew of bands or musicians that are all doing a kind of similar thing, and you can share an audience. This is, you know, I mean, we're in a time now where there are no live gigs, but in the future, it'll fire up again. That's the industry side of things. If you start feeling like you need more help, booking agent or a manager, and that's a really an undefined area of the industry where there's no one way and there's no right way, and it's, yeah, you just got to make it work and hustle hard enough and want it hard enough, I guess.
What's your take like on the industry itself? Like,
well, to be honest, it's still a mess to me, and I've been in it for 20 years. There's no right way. You know, some of the people who I've played for have been through a bunch of managers or a bunch of agents, and it hasn't quite worked for them. Then there are others who it has worked for. And then there are other people who, you know, let's take Tones and I. So Tones and I, right?
Yeah.
Really what got her happening was TikTok. All of a sudden, a busker from Byron has a song on TikTok and has gone #1 worldwide. And then so much is coming in for her at overnight that she needs a team. She needs management. All of a sudden, there's a team built around her. The other end of that spectrum, there are bands who are independent, who are doing really well. Maybe they're not as commercial as that, but they're doing super well. Take someone like Hiatus Coyote, for instance. They've got a small team around them, but they built their success from people coming to their live shows and being blown away week after week after week. A couple of influencers tweeted about them or like posted about them on socials, and all of a sudden they're doing, you know, international tours. That they're not making commercial music, so they haven't had #1s, but they're extremely successful. Lots of syncs, lots of people sampling their stuff, and because they're a pretty small unit in terms of the industry around them, the team around them, they're reaping most of the financial rewards as well.
Like, what is your goal?
I'd like for the CV3, my trio, to be playing more gigs and releasing more music, which, you know, that's all in the pipe works. It's all on hold at the moment because of COVID. But, you know, I've got a whole bunch of new material that's ready to release and was going to be released about this time, but you know, still playing for Billy Davis and Benny Walker and Tando. That's something that I really love as a freelance musician, is being able to play with a whole variety of people. Thanks for watching my Tremorz interview. I'll be releasing music over the coming months, so if you want to follow me, you can check out Instagram. Just look up the CB3, and the same on Facebook and Spotify.